They remember.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us at our regular May 25th, 2021 council meeting. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Sean Lynn Hare.
Here.
George Glover.
Here.
Ben Salcetta.
Here.
Melvin Kerr.
Here.
Tom Jones.
Here.
George Capps.
Here.
Brandy Bailey. Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll start with our invocation by Jerry Winkler. And Melvin will start us in the pledge.
All right, join me in prayer. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for so many things that we often take for granted. Gift of life, health, our community, the growth in our community. Thank you for those who serve and those who protect us. Father, I ask your blessing on the meeting tonight, wisdom and the matters we deal with. Help as we work together. Pray that for our community as well. Just a blessing all the time, and most of all, we in turn will bring a smile to your face, and we love you and give you thanks in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start out with the approval of the agenda. Sorry, guys. I'm new here. Okay. Jim?
I move that we approve the agenda.
And sorry, guys. Melvin?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have no awards presentations. Public forum, we have one person, Mr. Harold Bowser. And we have your address on here, so you don't need to say it.
Pardon me?
We have your address written on here, so you don't need to say it.
Okay. I'm back from the same issue I've talked to you all about 2 months ago. The flooding is, we haven't got that resolved yet. Mr. Mayor, you're not John Mann? I'm
John.
sorry, Ray Ban? Huh?
The mayor's not here tonight,
Okay.
so I'm just filling in for him.
Okay, threw me a curveball there. Anyways, the mayor agreed to meet with us, and he did with Sean. And just to give you a real quick rundown, we've come to button heads. The bottom line solution that I got, I think I got an email from Sean Thursday or Friday, and Sean said, sorry, we can't help you, and we shouldn't take the problem to the city council. Well, everyone involved disagrees. All the citizens that are involved disagrees with that. Our next intelligent our next intelligent step is to take it to the city council. And I would like to invite Mr. Jones and Mr. Kerr to come out and see the problem firsthand. It's been turned over to engineers. I'm an engineer myself, and I can tell you a lot of engineers like to engineer from the desktop. It doesn't work. Okay, I've gone out and I've sat at the problem, the site of the problem, while it was raining and observed what was going on. So unless those engineers have come out and done that, they're talking through their backside. Okay, from the desktop. Okay, if you guys want to come out during the rain and look at it, that would be great. I don't expect you to do that, but I can take photos and measurements and give you an analytical reasons why $113,000 is silly. Okay, it's a simple solution. Okay, I'd like for you all to do something to get this addressed. There's homes being flooded, an apartment complex is being flooded, and it's needless. The mayor and Sean both said, I'd be pissed if I were you guys. Well, we are. Okay? And it's been going on for far too long. Just to give you a history, 18 years ago, engineers made a decision to flood the backyards, 25 feet of the backyards. They just forgot to tell the water to stick within that 25 feet. okay? What I mean by that is they made no provisions for the water to stay within that 25 feet, the drainage easement. And the city stamped off on it, bought into it, said, okay, well, it's going through the backyards of the homes, not to the end, not to the back of the yards, but go through the middle of the yards. A few years ago, the city came along and said, well, tear down your sections of your privacy fence, put up iron rod fences so it could flow through there. Come on, guys. Really, that's how you fix a problem, is let it flow through the middle of your backyards? And then they come across, I think it was 2 years ago, and they put up a berm. And then they caused the apartments to flood even more, and they came down, tore down the berm. A year ago, I pointed out a very simple solution to them. I said, continue the ditch, because the ditch just stops, and does nothing. It stops right there. And I said, continue the ditch around the 45th Street. I mean, just 100 yards worth of ditch, and you've got it solved. It would never affect anybody, all the homeowners and the apartment complexes. That's an intelligent thinking. Continue a ditch. You don't just run it up to an apartment complex and stop it. Okay. Anyways, I'd love for you guys to put this on your agenda, for you guys to come out and meet with us and see what I'm talking about. It can easily be fixed.
How do we get a hold of you there? Do you have a phone number you want to
Would
give
you
us? or-
leave your number with Dana, and we can get it?
I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Dan?
Thank you, Council President and City Council. This past Saturday was Park City Serve Day. It was a great success. We want to express our thanks to the Park City Community Relations Board and to New Anthem Church for their service to this community and their efforts to coordinate it, and to all of the volunteers who participated. There were a total of 97 volunteers. They completed 23 projects at 13 different locations with a total volunteer man hours of 314 hours. They wanted to send a special shout out to Simon and Zach for their volunteer efforts that day. They said they kept everything running on time. They coordinated with some of the city equipment and were moving a lot of brush and trash removal. So thank you to them as well. Upcoming events include the Park City Garage Sale will be Saturday, June 5th. The Park City Fishing Derby will be June 19th, and that will be 9 to 1 in Grove Park. The 4th of July is actually right around the corner. There is a form that's online for people to complete if they would like to volunteer or if they would like to participate in the parade. The events truly are the heart and soul of our community here in Park City. We really appreciate all of the volunteers that make these events happen. Volunteers are also needed right now pretty desperately for the Meals on Wheels program. Madison is reaching out, and we will have this information on our social media as well. There are routes that are in Park City on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and/or Fridays, and Bel Air on Mondays. The meals are picked up around 11 a.m. at the Senior Center, and routes usually take about 1 to 1.5 hours to complete. Volunteers that are age 55 and over can actually register with the Sedgwick County RSVP program, and they will have gas cards that will help them in driving these routes. It's a fun volunteer opportunity. It's an opportunity to make a difference in a homebound senior's life. If people are interested, they can call the Meals on Wheels coordinator at 744-0751, and once again, we will get this information out on our social media. It has been very rainy lately, which gets us in a posture that we need to start thinking about how to stop the spread of mosquitoes. Just a reminder to everybody to make sure to avoid standing water. Dunks will be provided here at City Hall again this year, so they will be available at the front desk, and there are instructions on how to use them. Just wanted to let the public be aware that there's been a recent uptick in counterfeit bills. Our officer, Aaron Miller, is going to be providing information and training to our front desk staff, and also will be making a presentation and providing information to area businesses at the Park City Chamber of Commerce meeting tomorrow. and we will get this out on social media as well. That's the report. If there are any questions?
Seeing none?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. In addition to saying thank you to New Anthem Church and the Community Relations Board for their work here on the Park City Serve Day, I want to say also, I was just looking here in the picture, say thank you to Marlo. It looks like she was out there volunteering, and then of course our council member George Glover's there as well. So thank you to those who also took time out of their day from city staff and such to participate.
Thank you. George?
Dana, if you know, do you know what denomination these counterfeit bills are mostly of?
I would refer to the chief of police on that.
Generally, they've been larger Okay. Generally, they've been larger denomination bills. We've also seen some smaller denomination bills. I don't know if the thought there is perhaps people are, merchants are less likely to examine the bills when they're smaller, but I just saw one 2 or 3 days ago. It was a $10 bill. So it's good to, we'll push some things out on social media, Facebook, but it's good for folks to be aware of what to look for, the features, you know, that some of these are pretty good counterfeits. And
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks, Chief.
Good. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which has the minutes of May 11th regular meeting and appropriations with addendums. Do I have a motion? Jim?
I move that the consent agenda be presented as approved.
Okay. And George?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Motion passes. All right, next item, we'll move on to new business. Discuss and consider approval of the Park City Downtown District Master Plan as recommended by the Park City Planning Commission. Deanna?
As you're aware, council approved and purchased 48.5 acres of land adjacent to the City Administration Center with the intent of developing it as a downtown district. The city entered into an agreement with Confluence to develop a conceptual master plan for the new downtown district that would incorporate city citizen input on vision, goals, and programming. The project also would include development of a vision for enhancing the 61st Street corridor to create an attractive entry experience into this new downtown district, including new streetscape and identity branding considerations. The deliverables for this project included a site analysis, a conceptual master plan, a design narrative, and visual graphics and illustrations that will ultimately be used to issue a request of proposal for development and concept teams. The Park City Downtown District Master Plan draft was presented to the Park City Planning Commission on Monday, May 17th. The commission made a motion to recommend the Park City Council approve the Park City Downtown District Master Plan. In your packet is a draft of that plan, and Terry Burke-Bigler with Confluence is here to present the plan and answer questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back. Terry Burke-Bigler, principal with Confluence. Glad to be here and share the master plan with you. Basically, what I want to do tonight is do a quick overview of the plan. The information, the images, the diagrams, the drawings you'll see tonight have not changed from what I showed you a couple of months ago. Really, the process has been refining, putting it into this document that's in your packet, and then taking that back through Planning Commission. So I'll go through relatively quickly, but feel free to stop me. I just don't want to waste anyone's time. And then I do want to discuss, there were a few comments made by Planning Commission. I want to touch on those to make sure you're all aware of what our response would be and consider those, and then answer any additional questions you might have. The master plan itself, the document, as you've seen, it's a several-page document. It provides a good overview. There's a narrative description of the master plan. that talks about the various components of the district, the mixed-use opportunities, residential, open space and trail opportunities, the opportunity for this civic campus, if you will, if there's the incorporation of a community center at some point in the future. And then we talk about the streetscape opportunities and development of character and wayfinding and placemaking throughout the district, and how to make that unique. And when we talk about the design character, this document doesn't go so far as to prescribe a design guideline, if you will. We're not saying how much brick, how much glass, you know, that sort of thing. We're providing a general idea of what the aesthetic should be to meet the vision, but still allowing some flexibility in there for design, because again, this is really just a visioning tool for you all to use to try to implement this district master plan in the future in partnership with developers in the community. So the purpose of the study, as I mentioned, it's really to set that vision. It also records the public input. So if this is likely to be a multi-year project, so some of you may not be sitting in those chairs in the future as this plan is developed and this area develops over time. But this is a record of the input that went into creating this, so that future leadership groups, planning commission, city council, even staff, have that to refer back to. So it maintains the vision and the intent that you all in your community have established today. And that's from the standpoint of overall scale, massing, density, as well as an aesthetic and design character, and what was important at the time that this plan was created. This vision statement, this is something that we drafted up and extracted some of the important words that we heard through the process. Park City's downtown district, and this is sort of thinking ahead to the future. Park City's downtown district is a vibrant place with a diverse mix of housing, new shopping and entertainment opportunities, beautiful parks that enrich the quality of life for Park City residents. So a lot of the things we heard dealt with providing opportunities for additional restaurants, entertainment, things that would bring people into Park City for maybe they're coming to visit, but then we can also potentially keep them as future residents. Something that gives the younger people something to do and something to want to come back to and raise their families here in the future. So it's really creating that vibrant place that becomes an identifiable part and heart to Park City. The goals for the project: provide a mix of unique, high-quality dining and entertainment options, create a multi-generational place. So again, all ages, something for families, young adults, and the aging community, where all can interact and have something to do and find something that they enjoy doing. That's part of why you see a mix of housing types as well as the entertainment choices that could be developed. So the housing choices, again, we talk about single family attached, multifamily, even senior housing. Could be independent living, could be a range of senior housing options as well. And make a walkable neighborhood. So it's a place you can park once and walk and just enjoy, you know, a lot of different things. Come and spend the day in the park, spend the evening at a restaurant, come to a concert or a movie night, things like that. And then integrating green space and trails to create that real strong, rich gathering place in the community. You know, we think about the residents, but also think about those people that come into town to go to the races or other entertainment. Let's give them a place that they can come and spend their money in Park City at night as well, and come downtown. And then a 24/7 neighborhood that's that regional destination. So speaking to those visitors, but in addition to that, you've got a neighborhood here that supports the businesses that move in, you know, 7 days a week. So it's not just an influx of people on the weekends. So this is the master plan. Again, this hasn't changed from what we've shown before. We're talking about it within the master plan document in these kind of four areas. The district, which is that mixed use area at the northeast corner in orange, the district green, district market, and then the district park, which is down in the southern end, and then you've got that wrapped around by the residential areas. The senior housing is just to the west of the district market, and then the community center. Nothing special about the name district. It's just, it's kind of an identifier at this point. Again, you can see everything is really focused on that strong presence and that strong central green space and gathering area. You can see the city administration center where we are tonight up along 61st Street. And then there's this concept of potentially building a community center at some point in the future that could be next to or even connected to the library. And that creates that sort of civic campus that we mentioned earlier. I'm just gonna move kind of clockwise around. You've got this mixed use and residential neighborhood of 3-4 story apartment buildings that have their own, their own amenities, their own amenity spaces. But then in the center of that, you can even see an opportunity for more public spaces around where the restaurants could be located at the southern kind of central point of that neighborhood. Coming on around to right now, we're showing more of a row house, single family attached type model there. A developer could come in and say, I could do some duplex, some single family attached. That'll really be a decision to be made in the future based on what is appropriate, what the market might drive. But really what we're trying to show here is the character and quality that you all are trying to achieve. Doesn't mean we're specifying the exact product type that would be built. Then we come around to a park in the kind of southern central area. May have some sport courts, tennis, pickleball, basketball, dog park as an opportunity there to really serve that neighborhood, give them a place for the dogs to run off leash. And then maybe there's a place for a dry, wet playground, spray ground, something like that. So again, these are just big ideas and kind of responding to what we heard from the community during the public input. Multifamily row house or that single family attached there on the other side of the park and out toward hydraulic. And then rounding out with some senior family or senior housing residential there near where the senior facilities are today. It could be that in the future when that happens, if that comes forward at a point, it might even make sense that the existing senior facilities transition into a part of that development. That's all something that could happen in the future. Conceptualize the farmer's market. That could be dual purpose, parking for the park in the, in the off days, but then when the market's going on, that's that active, lively space. And then we think it's really handy to have that nearby the senior housing. So again, from that walkable standpoint and providing access to whether it's produce, food, whatever that market wants to focus on. And then obviously the civic space could be an amphitheater where you can have small events, large events, as well as even maybe a more formal playground. And then the pavilion / event space that we're talking about could be a rental type facility, fairly flexible, could be pretty open, could have a small cafe in it, just something like that to attract more people to come. And so the idea is really that these non-residential uses that are identified are really trying to provide a wide range of reasons for people to come, residents as well as people that live nearby Park City. So just going through the different parts of the plan. Here's that mixed use area currently showing something that's up to 4-story, some retail, restaurant, service type retail on the first floor. So think of, dry cleaning, salon, coffee, ice cream, some of the smaller shops, as well as, more casual dining, maybe even a fine dining option, to really anchor those corners and activate that little plaza space that's in the center there. And then as you move up more toward the north, 61st Street would be in the background there. It becomes more neighborhood oriented. So that space can have more lawn space and trees for the residents that live in those apartments. This is a view more up in that space. You can just see how you move to the north, it becomes more residential in nature, a little bit smaller, kind of confined courtyard space there. Looking at those single family attached units, the row houses, if you will, that come in along what right now has been called Hebert Street. And so you're looking to the east here. On the left side of the street is this idea for a 3-story senior housing. It could be independent living, it could be more active aging. It's really kind of what the market might demand and what a developer thinks would work here. We're seeing more and more of these that are just active aging communities, and I could even see an opportunity for, some of these condos or single-family attached units to even be a part of that mix, where it's folks that maybe want to have their own unit, but it's a model that would work for them to age in place and then maybe still move over into the higher density senior family housing in the future. So some specific bullet points on this, private access to amenities and parking. So these folks would have their own, you can see that sort of alley rear entrance. They would front the street with their doors, but then they would have garage and alley access. So they have their own private parking. The units front onto the street, or they front onto a trail along the south edge. And then I think the idea there is this notion of blended contemporary and traditional character. I think what we would recommend is that we avoid anything too homogeneous, but really try to create some diversity and character in the architectural type, so it's a little bit more unique and folks have a sense of identity where they live. And then this is a view at the retention pond over on the southeast corner, kind of looking back, similar type of properties that could be located along there. And then again, the single family, maybe there's 60, 70 units. It's all market dependent, and even having some room for expansion. But locating that to where it's, again, kind of strategically near the senior facilities, but also near the park and amenity spaces, and kind of centrally located on the site. Another view kind of looking out over the whole from the north, kind of hovering over the northeast corner, looking back toward the west, southwest. So you get a sense of the character there. The units in these apartments really have some, they've got connectivity to that central promenade that I showed you earlier. They have their own private amenity spaces, could be swimming pool, could be other amenities, outdoor cook centers, things like that you would find in most apartment complexes that are built today. It's important, we think, to have a range of unit sizes so that when we talk about affordability, could be everything from studios up to 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, depending upon that ultimate mix and unit size and ultimate density, could be anywhere from 300, 350 units, potentially more than that, depending upon, a developer pro forma. And then looking at the civic lawn space, flexibility we think is key to that, so it can be used for virtually anything. It could be just a place to go out and have a pickup game of football, flag football, frisbee, whatever. Could be a place for a large event. Could have a smaller event over at that amphitheater that kind of faces back into the larger civic lawn. So it could be a place for festivals. It's just a lot of flexibility to use that space and set it up in multiple different ways. But it really, the key there is that it's done in a way that it really kind of creates that destination for residents. Open lawn space, could have some more native kind of prairie planting, something indicative of the area. But all of that's yet to be finally designed. Again, kind of looking back at that amphitheater space, this is one where you could have, a few hundred people for a small type concert. You could flip that even and set it up facing the other direction in that larger lawn and have a much larger event if you chose to do so. And then the market itself. So, think farmers market, could be other types of markets, could be art fair, could be a lot of different things that could occur here. This building itself could also be designed in a way that it can be flexible to be rented out. It could have walls, doors that close on part of it, the whole thing, so that it could all be an indoor space to have four-season attraction to it. So when your farmer's market isn't as active, it could be still used in the winter months. And we think there's some real benefit to having places like this that if you've got to have parking, you've got to have paved area, let's go ahead and put a roof over it and at least use it for a market or some other purpose. Just more views of that area around the park in the center. You may have some sculpture, could be a public art program, art walk or something. And then that District Green Cafe could be Could be rentable space, could just be restrooms and a small coffee shop or concession area. So whatever seems to be the most appropriate for the community, but just a kind of a hub space, if you will, gathering area, like the notion of Wi-Fi, so people can come and hang out. I think one thing we definitely learned over the past year is people are pretty flexible on where they're working and the ability to set up outside in a shady spot. It's just more reasons people are using parks these days. And then I mentioned the sport court opportunity and that more active park space. So think of the other as a much more passive area, this one being more active, and trying to consolidate that into one area. I don't think you can ever have enough pickleball courts these days, so the whole place could be pickleball courts, I suppose. And then you can see here, maybe there's an opportunity here for a spray ground, so it's not wet all the time. It could be just flexible play for kids with a little bit of water, or it's all dry, but we've had a lot of success kind of mixing the dry wet play, so that on a hot day the kids, and you know, it extends the amount of time people are there. The kids can run around, cool off, go back and play, sit in the shade, and that's kind of the idea, is to create that opportunity for people to spend more time. And then just showing how the dog park can be fitted out with different things, providing some shade, providing things for the dogs to do besides just run around and wrestle and create, you know, create a muddy spot. We want to provide a place for them potentially to even do things that are a little bit more physical. Trail system connecting with the existing trail network around the area that would go up north of the site, as well as connecting to all the residences. So it would be public. You know, the people that live here live in a community, but all these green spaces and trails would be, you know, accessible to the general public to come through, walk, ride bikes, take a run, but then they can also connect to other trail network around the community. And then, again, this notion of the civic campus. This is just a big idea at this point. Obviously, the next step would be to determine, is this even a need? You know, doing a feasibility study. You know, we just plugged in a fairly generic sort of footprint of a community center that has fitness and gymnasium space, meeting space, things like that. But ultimately, if that's something that the community has a desire for, there's a lot of work that would have to go into defining what is that and the right size and components for something like that. But we do think that in and of itself could be a nice anchor. Because depending upon what's included in a facility like that, it can attract not just residents, but people that would pay a non-resident rate. So you're bringing more people from this northern part of the metro. Just a view looking out over the whole area again. Kind of an entry talking about iconic, you know, gateway features, wayfinding, just fairly generic at this point, but something that establishes the idea would be to establish a sense of character when you enter the site. So that right out of the gate, you've got a sense of that this is a unique and really cool place. I want to come visit, I want to live here, whatever the case may be. And it's also connected with some improvements to 61st Street that create that edge along the entire block. And then looking up hydraulic again, kind of getting a sense for identifying what that streetscape is. So, you know, incorporating seating places, activating the streets, you know, providing on-street parking. Again, it's important it provides the parking without having large asphalt seas of parking, but it also provides a buffer from the street for pedestrians. And then utilizing some of those intersections and green spaces for whether it's artwork or, you know, water feature, whatever it might be, but just identifying that as these unique wayfinding and placemaking opportunities around the site. And then signage. Whatever the ultimate design is, there's some continuity. That's really what we're trying to say here, is make it iconic and unique. And so when you circulate around the area, it feels like it's all one place. Could be multiple developers, but whatever you define for that character, you know, they're following a similar design style. So I want to wrap up with just kind of going through Planning Commission comments, and then we can have, you know, I'm happy to answer additional questions. One of the comments raised was concern about public input process and that there was a sense that there wasn't enough turnout. And they would like to see this plan distributed to everyone in Park City so they know what's going on. So actually, based on what we had heard about prior efforts in Park City and even what we see in other communities, we feel like there was really strong input. Almost 300 respondents with the public meeting we held, in addition to the online engagement. That's huge. That's, I want to say, roughly 4.5% of the overall Park City population, something like that. Just a reference point, we're doing a project that's somewhat similar but a larger scale down in Stillwater right now. We have less than 100 people engaged in the process. Different community. This is an important thing for the community and what we feel as the community came out for it. And so I think part of that goes to the staff that did a great job of promoting it, as well as the importance of this and that the folks they realize this is an opportunity. Maybe not everybody's for it, but it's an opportunity, so let's at least voice our opinion. So I think that's good. So in our opinion, strong turnout. Concern over the orientation of amphitheater. Really, this thing is a very high-level vision. I think that's all stuff that will be designed. That can be figured out. But yeah, it's a good point. It's something that has to be navigated as a part of the ultimate design of the project. How would it all get funded? Would there be phases? People don't like new taxes. Seems like a big expense for the city to take on. Who would maintain the public spaces? So obviously a lot of questions in there. So I'll share kind of what we understand and the discussions we've had. So basically the response and what's in yellow, there are responses. So while the funding and implementation strategy is yet to be defined, the investment in parks and infrastructure of this type is a valuable incentive. And I think we've talked about that. That really can catalyze private investment. So is there an investment and expense there? Yes, absolutely. But I think the real trick there is to balance that investment with what is the payback. And the payback isn't necessarily always a dollar for dollar discussion. It's also quality of life. And what are you providing for the residents? And does that eventually then become more economic development in the term of additional residents, which then fuel additional economic growth? So yes, it is a significant investment. And when we look at that, we're talking about roads, utilities, parks, things like that the city would probably end up taking on to incentivize the rest of the private development incentives or investment. Question if the housing depicted would be rental, who would maintain the units? At this point, what we've talked about is all that is privately owned, developed. Unless that changes, that's our understanding. That doesn't seem like the city's going to want to get into the housing business, and that would ultimately be privately owned and operated, whether they're apartments or, single-family owned homes. Concern if the residential buildings that front on 61st would be the backs of buildings, so that what are the people across the street going to see? Which great point. It's important that all these buildings, especially those, have really true four-sided architecture. And really those buildings are the way they are, the use, the type, sets up as well as any building for that, because you've got, windows, balconies on all sides of a building like that. Really your service areas are going to be more consolidated into key locations, central locations. It's not like having the back of a department store or something like that. Newport Street, which is incorrect, connects with Grove. There would need to be traffic light busy intersection already. So the first point, the street names, they all need to be figured out as final design occurs. Probably some things that need to be tweaked on that, no doubt. But the other part of that is a project of this size and scale is going to require a traffic study to be done as a part of it. We understand that. Your staff understands that as well. So that would discuss whether there's additional roadway improvements, signal improvements, things like that would have to be undertaken. General clarification needed on the purpose of the plan. So as we talked about earlier, it outlines a vision for long-term development of a downtown district. It doesn't define the final product that will be built. It's a visual representation of the city's desire for the property to help guide the future development and future partnerships. So, you know, we say long-term. Long-term could be 5 years, long-term could be 3, could be 10, but it's not something that we would expect is going to happen overnight. That's a large undertaking. But you're doing the right things and taking the right steps to establish a vision now. And then the last comment, concern over the cost of the city's role in the project. They mentioned Bel Air, a project that was financially difficult for the city to implement all at once. Don't know about that project, don't know what all went into it or what exactly that refers to, but the response there is that the city just needs to define a funding and implementation strategy that's feasible and sustainable. And I would just add to that, while also doing enough to prove to the private investment community that you're serious. So you could say, well, we don't want to spend a lot up front, and one of the things we caution clients about is doing enough at the beginning so that it excites people and gets their attention, and being careful to not be too conservative on what you do so that people say, is that okay? So they went through this whole process and that's what they're doing. Don't know what that right thing is yet, but that's part of that next step is, you know, the city's going to have to invest. What is the right amount to invest? And I think that's where future discussions with potential partners, developers, to, you know, it's an iterative process and a flexible process to kind of land on the right balance of, are we doing enough? Is the city interested in incentivizing to a certain point beyond the land, utilities? That's all part of that next step. So, additional questions and comments, kind of flew through that.
I've got one. Where did you come up with what we need to put, what you could put in here? Is that off your survey or?
Yeah.
And did you rank that the most important in there?
So, in the document, there's a summary, I believe it's in the appendix, of the public input we received. And so, yes, that is part of the input we received from our initial workshop with council and with stakeholders to define sort of the initial, here's what the kit of parts is, if you want to call it that, or what we feel we need to be including in this space or in this property. There's been no market study done to this point. That's going to be part of what a developer would need to do. Then that was tested with the community, sort of at the next round. Once we had a concept, we brought the community back in and said, okay, here's what it is. Tell us what else you would like to see. So.
Well, I hear a lot of people saying about a water park and stuff like that. I see a little splash pad here, but that's.
And I'd have to look to see. It may not have been high on the list. It may have been on the list, but maybe it wasn't one of the highest vote getters, if you will.
Of course, I put down I wanted the go-kart track and the hot dog stands, but you know, that's.
Yeah, well, and all that, and that's, I mean, that's the benefit of doing this now. It's an idea, it's a vision. But when it's time to spend the money, there's more thought and more final decision-making that has to occur. And that, you know what, whatever it might be, whether it's an aquatic park or something else, between now and then, you may find that that is an important thing, and there might be a place here for that.
Well, I'm all for the concept of this. I'm not really sure I'm for what's in there, but.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I do want to say thank you all for the work on this there, and one of the things I've noticed just in, whether it's been social media or I guess next door is really kind of social media. There's been a lot of discussion among the community as far as things going on and engagement in that way. I don't know if these are same people that have filled out the surveys or whatever, but just looking through, you know, just a lot of excitement there along that part, whether it's in the parks, whether it's in the splash pad or pool. I've seen a lot of comments concerning both of those mentioned on there. It's just great to see the engagement from citizens.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also, and you mentioned this as far as moving forward, and I love the concept. I think it's a great thing to move forward with, but I really hope we can focus on making sure we send it into the private business venture rather than the public trying to develop this, just being responsible with taxpayer dollars, but also making sure that our or that any developers know we are serious. So thank you all for your work very much, and I think
Yeah,
everybody's
well,
circled.
It has been, it's been a fun project to work on with the group. And again, we've been excited to see the response from the community, and we've been following social media chatter as well. And, you know, it's not always positive, but I would say by and large, it's, to your point, it's been supportive. But what we also find, and I think there's a benefit there for social media, that it helps us understand, like any project like this, because it's so early and it's such a big idea, there's a lot of education that will need to occur with the community about the steps that need to be made. And, you know, there isn't anything that's going to be built tomorrow. There are still a lot of steps to take. And so I think that's probably the key thing, is just steps at a time, and communicating and educating the public along the way is where you keep them engaged and keep them from getting too frustrated or disenfranchised.
I think one of the biggest segments there that has reached out to me has been younger couples that are moving into Park City, or young families that are moving into Park City that are very excited about the possibility here on that, which I think really speaks to the growth of our town moving forward, is focusing on that. So.
Great.
Okay, George?
Yeah, I'm really encouraged by what you guys had put together here. For me, it's about progressive vision of Park City. Where do we go from here? And I really like the fact that you've looked at possible, for me, it's about the housing. You got with millennials coming in, you've got businesses coming in, plus you've got townhomes, you've got condos, and you've got senior living as well. You know, us older folks, we want a place to live, you know, and then you got the millennials. You guys are addressing both ends of the spectrum, and I appreciate that. Also the entertainment vision for Park City. What can we bring in right here in our own backyard, to attract not only families but individuals as well, the folks that are going to live in Park City, they're going to work in Park City, they're going to play in Park City, and they're going to spend money here. So we want those avenues, and I think you guys have done a real good job about addressing that, the greenscape, all those other avenues. So I just appreciate what you've done and our vision moving forward.
Thank you. Well, you touched on something there I want to circle back to, and it's, you know, across the country, well, especially pre-COVID, but even now, people are still moving into urban areas. If you look at downtown Wichita, apartments are being built, a lot of apartments, Kansas City, I mean, anywhere around here, apartments are being built in the more urban areas because people, young people, but old people like me, are looking for lively area to be without maintenance. You can provide that. It doesn't have to be downtown in a large city. You can provide a very similar character and atmosphere for living for people that want that walkability. I live in a cool neighborhood, but I don't want to deal with the commute, or it's safer here, or whatever the reason is. And that's what I think is really neat about this, and the vision that I mean, really, you know, to get back to it, these aren't our ideas. These are ideas that the community told us. We just figured out how to fit it all together. So I think that's, you know, that's where you ought to be patting yourselves on the back, because seeing that opportunity, and I keep you don't see this, I'm pointing on my screen, to the mixed use area. I think that can be a real catalyst. And there are going to be people that want to live in an environment like that, but they don't want to be in an apartment. They can live across the street or down the street and in their own home or a townhome or whatever it might be. So I think it's a good mix. There's still work to be done, but I think it's a good mix.
Yeah. Jim?
Hey, I think this is great. It's well put together. You know, you solicited input from the community, developers, us, you know, staff. There was a lot of good input. There's a lot of work left to be done, and I think it's a great step in the right direction. So I would move to approve the Park City Downtown District Master Plan.
Ben?
I excitingly second.
Okay. All right, any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
So if you want any more next steps, We've got those in there as well, just as a closing comment. Shouldn't speak because it's been approved. That's like the, don't ever do that. If there was an attorney here, he'd be grabbing me. But, you know, we were asked to talk about those next steps, and I think this is part of that beginning the education phase. And it's, you know, there's been talk about soliciting proposals from development teams. There's some discussion about how you get there. What's the right way? City will be a strong supporter to assist in the project. That's infrastructure. We've talked about that. Parks, trails. Is there another level of incentives beyond that? And then I think one of the earlier things that we probably need to look at with staff is zoning. Does your ordinance allow something like this? And I think that may be a sort of a simple first step, is to look at what modification might need to be made to that. So now starts the hard work, as we say. So I appreciate it. We want to continue to help you guys realize this, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 4. Dana?
Yes, the city has received a request from Church on the Street to hold an event in Hat McLean Park on June 12th, 2021. Their plan is to have a concert with local Christian musicians, yard games, and food trucks. Church on the Street would like to invite all Park City school-aged children and youth. They intend to promote the event via Facebook with approximately 200 youth in attendance. We gave you information that you could look up the group on their website. Where they're wanting to hold this is the area in the park that is back toward the BMX track. Staff contacted BMX. There is no conflict for that date. Krista is here and would like to present this to you for your consideration.
Welcome.
Hi. So if you guys looked up Church on the Street, you know a little bit about what we do with the homeless ministry. But we also are friends with several other groups around Wichita that work with youth, getting them off streets, out of gangs. A lot of that's through music, and they are all really excited and jumping at the chance to come up here to Park City and give our youth something to be part of, and kind of something just to celebrate the end of the year and hopefully make some connections.
Okay, and that's, you're planning on June 12th is when you're wanting to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. George?
Yeah, Matthew 9:37. The harvest is great and the workers are few. Lord, send workers for the harvest. Anytime you have a positive event in the community that I think could influence a lot of the kids that we have, or even other people, I think it's a positive thing. So I'm all for this. I think it's great, and it's a good event to have at the end of the school year. Thank you.
Want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Good. And Ben?
Yeah, second for discussion, just for clarification. The application says effective date is May 29th. The staff summary says June 12th.
May 29th, so there were a lot of questions that we didn't get to answer in time, so we had to move the date so that there weren't conflicts for all who do want to come and be involved.
Okay, so it's June 12th. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure on that. I don't have any objections to it at all. I think it's a great thing to do, so.
So why don't we, if you're okay with it in the motion, since the actual application says May 29th, why don't you stipulate in your motion and the second approve it, that we want it to be approved for June 12th?
Application date of May 29th and the actual concert date of June 12th, 2021.
And Ben, you're good
Yeah,
with that?
I'm good with that.
Got that? Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5. Dana?
5 is the Equi Hills Commercial Second Phase 1, High Ridge Second Phase 4, High Ridge Second Phase 5, and Prairie Hills Phase 5 projects are complete, so special assessments can now be levied on the lots in those additions. In order for the developers have approximately the same amount of time before they must begin paying specials, all projects will be assessed for the first payment due in 2021. Long-term general obligation bonds will be issued in the fall of 2021 to pay off temporary note number 209-1 that has temporarily funded these projects. So Larry Kleeman is here to address this evening.
Yeah, good evening. Larry Kleeman with Ransom Financial. We serve as the financial advisor to the city, assisting with preparing for and issuing municipal bonds to cover project debt. As Dana mentioned, several projects have been completed and they're ready to be permanently bond financed. Basically in residential areas, street, water, sewer. I think there's a commercial development there too. And because the intent is for these bonds to not be paid by city at large funds, but to be paid by the benefiting property owners through special assessments, there's a state law that requires us to jump through a few hoops. And so we're starting that tonight. And the documents before you summarize the costs for all these projects. We've been working with city staff to prepare all those. That includes construction costs, engineering, city administration costs, legal and financial costs of issuing the debt. And so we've compiled all that, and more importantly, we've laid out the proposed special assessments, basically per lot special assessments for each individual property owner or business owner, as the case may be. And under state law, you're required to have a hearing, which would be scheduled next month, the June 22nd meeting. We will prepare a notice for the paper and also mail out notices to all these property owners, so they'll be aware of the hearing. They can come next month and give their thoughts on the proposed assessments. After that, then you'll adopt an ordinance to officially levy them. And then our plan is to issue the bonds in August, as well as a temp note, so I'll be back here a few times in the coming months. And then when those bonds are issued, we'll know the actual interest rate, expected to be fairly low, probably around 2% or even less for a 15-year bond. And at the end of the year, the assessments will begin for all those property owners. It'll be collected with their property taxes, and those assessments will then pay the principal and interest, the debt service on the bonds. So you have the costs before you, the documents to authorize the hearing at the next month, so you can just approve all those exhibits, and we'll take care of notifying the property owners, and we'll be back here next month to carry on with that process.
Thank you. I have a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve Exhibit A, Statement of Final Cost, Exhibit B, Assessment of Roll Certification, Exhibit C, Notice of Public Hearing, and Exhibit D, established June 22nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. to meet the purposes of hearing any and all written oral objections to the respective assessments set forth herein.
And Ben.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. And is this a roll call? Or just a regular motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 6.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Marlo is passing out a handout that I'll discuss in a few minutes. I thought it might be a little confusing to throw it in your packet without the explanation, so. The intent of the new budget law is pretty simple in concept, but there are a lot of minor details that make it a little more complicated, so I'm going to kind of work through some of the highlights tonight. The enactment of Senate Bill 13 and Senate substitute for House Bill 2104 repealed the tax lid for 2022, created a new budget timeline, and implemented a revenue neutral rate, which is referred to as the R&R. The R&R is the mill levy computed using the June 15th estimated assessed valuation that exactly equals the amount of ad valorem taxes levied in the previous year. In other words, if a city does not go through the process to exceed the revenue neutral rate, you will be levying the exact same property tax dollars, not mills, dollars, as you did in the previous year. There's no increase allowed in the R&R formula for such things as expiration of property tax abatements, which for us, the important thing would be the IRBs going back on the tax rolls. No allowances for such things as new improvements, remodeling, renovations, none of that. It's purely exactly equal to last year's tax levy in dollars. So unless we go through the process outlined in the new law to exceed the R&R, we must use the R&R as an estimated mill levy, which provides us with the same tax dollars as last year. The R&R will be provided to entities each year by the county clerk along with the June 15th budget estimates, and that also includes our estimated assessed valuation at the same time. Entities that do plan to exceed the R&R must inform the county clerk by July 20th each year of the amount of ad valorem tax to be levied and subsequently publish a notice, hold a tax rate hearing, and approve a resolution to exceed the R&R prior to holding the typical budget hearing and adoption. On the budget calendar in your packet, you may have noticed that there's a red dotted line about halfway down across the middle of the page. That is the point you must make a decision of whether we're going to stick with levying the R&R, or if not, then the amount that you are levying. We can't just say we want to exceed it. We have to know by how much at that point. Sean and I are recommending that we always plan to exceed the R&R. Since I've been here, the council has held the mill levy at the same level, and it's provided us more tax dollars due to growth in our community, which then allowed us to do more in the community. However, if we were to stay with the R&R, we would actually be forced to do less due to inflation. Sean and I feel that Park City needs to be able to capture the dollars related to the growth that's happening in our community in order to provide additional funds needed to expand and provide better services. Additionally, the State of Kansas Municipal Service Division has strongly advised that all cities always hold a tax rate hearing, going through the same process you would if you intended to exceed the R&R. The reason is that the new law does not even allow for the final valuation that's calculated in November, and that's after taxpayers have argued their taxes and all the dust is settled and they have their final valuation. It does not allow for that to increase the mill levy over that R&R. And if that happens, because that you don't know which way the final valuation is going to go. If the final valuation decreases from the estimate, the mill levy is going to increase. So even if we thought we were intending to levy the R&R, the actual final levy could be a little higher than that, and that's a violation. It doesn't allow for that. So if that bump over the R&R happened due to the final valuation, even if it's 0.001, is to the third decimal, then those additional taxes must be refunded to all the taxpayers, with the city paying the cost to the county to do that. The state has indicated that holding the tax rate hearing puts us back into the old law that does allow an increase in the final levy. So even if you didn't intend to, go ahead and hold the tax rate hearing, and that puts you back into the old law where that little bump over that amount would be okay, and you could take it without refunding the few dollars back to everybody. Okay, not this year, but beginning in 2022, the county clerk will notify taxpayers either by mail or by email of all the taxing subdivisions that are planning to exceed R&R. The state pays the cost of the notification for the first 2 years, so that would be next year and the following year, so 2022 and 2022 2022 and 2023 notices. In subsequent years, the cost shall be shared proportionally by the taxing entities that plan to exceed the R&R based on the amount of property taxes levied on each of those entities, or levied by each of those entities. The notice will include a lot of information. In fact, I suspect it will create a lot of questions of taxpayers. For all entities that are relevant to a particular taxpayer's property, so wherever you're at, wherever you have property, you're going to get a notice of all entities that you pay taxes to, and only those entities. So like our Park City taxpayers would not see anything to do with City of Wichita, for example. The notice for that taxpayer's property, the notice will include for all those entities, each taxing entity's R&R, each entity's prior year mill levy and taxes levied on that property, the current year's appraised value and assessed value of the property, and the estimate of each entity's current year tax on the property based on the revenue neutral rate. For those entities that are planning to exceed the R&R, the notice will also include each entity's proposed mill levy, the proposed property tax revenue needed to fund the proposed budget of each entity, the difference between each entity's tax estimates based on the proposed mill levy and the revenue neutral rate, and the date, time, and location of each entity's public hearing, and that is the tax rate hearing. That's not the normal budget hearing, it's the tax rate hearing. Additionally, all of the state of Kansas is not a taxing subdivision. For purposes of this, the notice shall include a statement of the statutory mill levies imposed by the state and the estimate of taxes for the current year on the taxpayer's property based on those levies. So in other words, the state's mill levy will stay the same, but they haven't imposed any of the R&R processes on themselves. Your agenda packets include a copy of the proposed 2022 budget calendar, and the date's been set to comply with the required submission timelines. In addition to the regular council meeting dates, we're proposing one special council meeting. The special meeting is a budget work session currently scheduled for Tuesday, June 15th at 6 p.m., and dinner would be provided. The department heads will be in attendance to discuss their budgets and respond to your questions. Very similar format to the past 2 years. If a city is not planning to exceed the R&R and does not want to hold the tax rate hearing as the state has recommended, then the same timeframes apply that we always had in the past with an August 25th deadline for submission to the county. The land bank would also fall into this category because there's no related mill levy to the land bank, so that means there's no R&R, so they would be under the old budget timeframe of an August 25th deadline. The land bank budget hearing adoption is proposed to be held during the August 10th regular city council meeting at 7 p.m. For the regular budget, if we plan to exceed the revenue neutral rate, there is a different required timeline that has an October 1st deadline for submission to the county. So if you want to grab that sheet that Marlo just handed out to you. At the top is how the R&R is calculated. So the R&R that we should be receiving by June 15th will be last year's total ad valorem property tax levied in dollars, and that is for this year's 2021 budget. Divide that by this year's estimated assessed valuation as of June 15th for next year's 2022 budget, and multiply that by 1,000. So in the 2021 budget section, all that information is factual. That is all what we actually experienced for this year's budget. So the city levied $4,107,350 in property taxes. The final assessed value is $92,002,002,316. The value of 1 mill was $92,002. The final mill levy was 44.643. And by the way, our original estimated mill levy was 44.641. So had we been under the old or under the new tax law and had chosen not to hold the tax hearing, we would be violating by exceeding the R&R, and the county would have had to refund the taxes related to that .002 mills that it adjusted. Okay, the next section is the 2022 budget. The first line there tells you that we're going to use for the R&R last year's city tax dollars levied, which is $4,107,350. The next amounts are purely my made-up numbers. They are not real yet, so these are not our estimated values or anything. So this is just something to give you an example. So I estimated a 7% increase over last year's final valuation because that's a very reasonable estimate for what we've experienced in Park City in recent years. So my estimate of the estimated assessed valuation is $98,442,478. The value of 1 mil would then be $98,442, which is an increase from last year of $6,440 per mil. So the R&R takes last year's taxes levied divided by this year's estimated assessed valuation times 1,000 is 41.724 mils. If we assume the final assessed valuation has decreased slightly to $98,439,478, go through the same calculation, but this is for the final mill levy. The final mill levy would be 41.725 mils. Notice that that is 1/1000th of a mil greater than the R&R. So even though we didn't intend to exceed the R&R, we did, and if we had not held the tax rate hearing as the state has recommended, the county would be refunding those excess taxes to each one of our taxpayers. It would be a very small amount. I assume that would be a credit on their tax bills. I don't know the answer to that, exactly the mechanics of that, but I'm sure there'd be a lot of time and labor involved in that. So we would get to pay the bill for that refund. So with that, I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have over either the new budget law or the calendar.
Okay, Ben?
I don't really have anything necessarily on the calendar part. I'm fine with it there. I feel for you and for our financial staff and for cities around our state that are having to deal with this stuff that's come out of Topeka. It amazes me that as a group, and I consider myself an old school conservative that believes government needs to be more limited, but it needs to be effective. And this is not limited government. This is ineffective government. And what it's doing to our cities is handicapping our abilities to provide the necessary services to our citizens. And we believe that government is best served when it's at the local level, but yet what we see is an attempt here to strip our ability to properly serve our constituents. And so for that, I apologize to our staff that they have to deal with this, but I thank you for that. I wish that more of our legislators would take the time to understand the local government process, especially when they decide to exempt themselves from their own rules. I know that happens often in government, but this is ridiculous. And it's frustrating because all this is doing is wasting more and more taxpayer dollars. Because when if the city has to pay for it, it's taxpayer dollars that are paying for that. So we're going to pay our taxpayers to get a refund back, which is asinine. So I have nothing else. I'm just frustrated with this. So.
Okay, Tom?
I was just going to say, this has been an agenda item in Topeka for probably 6 or 7 years, and they finally achieved where they were trying, or part of what they were trying to do. And it's just like the election, moving from spring to fall. There's an impact to it, and this is going to cost the cities. So,
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 budget calendar. And just to remind everybody that June 15th will be the budget work session if this passes. And Jim?
I would second that for discussion. I'm also in the discussion being that I'm also in the camp that the state needs to pay more attention to their own budget and less to ours so that we can do our jobs. I think our past performance here in Park City's suggested that we've always taken care of our citizens and spent their money appropriately. So that's all I have to say.
Good, thank you. Anybody else? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I'll make a motion, we take a 5-minute break.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. It's 8:15.
Calm down. Stop getting so
You slid in pretty quiet.
I came in so you could just.
I looked over and I looked over and I thought, Ray's sitting next to me.
we're reconvening from our recess, and that brings us to item 7, which is discuss and consider approval of the trans-system contract for the National Bridge Inventory, Field Inspection, and Evaluation Services. Dana?
Thank you, Mayor Mann. Park City has had their biennial bridge inspections completed by the same engineering firm for the past 8 years. Depending upon the scope of services to be conducted, the prices ranged between $4,500 to just over $15,000. Upon receipt of their latest proposal, $10,415, staff solicited a proposal from Trans-System, who has a reputation as one of the nation's top bridge consultants. Trans-System provided the attached scope of services, which was in your packet. They will perform the National Bridge Inventory, Field Inspection, and Evaluation Services on the following 7 bridges: 53rd Street Bridge over Chisholm Creek, Hydraulic Street Bridge over Chisholm Creek Tributary, 61st Street Bridge North over Chisholm Creek, Broadway Bridge over Chisholm Creek, 77th Street Bridge over Chisholm Creek Tributary, 53rd Street Bridge over West Branch of Chisholm Creek, 61st Street New Bridge over local drainage. KDOT requires field inspection and evaluation to be completed and submitted by May 29th. The total cost for services is $3,181. This will be paid out of the Streets and Highway Fund, and staff recommends approval and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Trans-System in the amount not to exceed $3,181.
Thank you, Dana. Tom, were you trying to click in? Were you trying to click in? 'Cause-
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a contract with Trans-Systems in the amount of not to exceed $3181.
Okay, Ben?
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much for following up on that and getting us a better deal. Appreciate that. That brings us to item 8, which is discuss and consider approving the contract with Hearthstone, Inc. to perform repairs to the 61st Street and 135 monument. Simon?
So back in 2020, a vehicle hit the Park City monument that's placed at the 61st Street median at the intersection of I-135. It's going to need repair, and these repairs include fabrication and painting of a new metal sign, stone and repair materials, and the stone and repair labor. The sign was constructed with labor and materials from Hearthstone Incorporated, making this a sole source provider purchase. The cost to perform the repair is $16,320. $11,320 was reimbursed through an insurance claim. The remaining $5,000 of this purchase will be paid utilizing the General Fund Parks Department. Staff recommends approval.
John?
I will make a motion, but I also had a question after it gets seconded. I'll make a motion to approve a contract with Hearthstone Incorporated for repairs of 61st and I-135 monument in the amount of $16,320 to be paid from the General Funds Parks Department.
And Ben?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, John?
So when you say insurance, is that our insurance or someone that hit its insurance?
I believe that was our insurance.
Yeah, it's ours.
I figured
It's our
since it said
$5,000 deductible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon, I appreciate that. I would ask for a 5-minute recess. Ben?
Make a motion, we recess for 5 minutes. There we go.
Okay, John?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-0. and we will reconvene as the Park City Council, and we are now at item 9, and we're going to discuss and consider suspending the new home buyers incentive program for 2021. Dana?
The city has offered a home buyer's incentive plan since 2014. In 2020, the council added both an exterior grant program and an exterior paint program. The success of all the incentive programs has been very well received by the community. Annually, the council has made program modifications to more accurately target and incentivize the type of housing needed and desired within the community. With the addition of businesses such as Amazon, Pratt Industries, and Crosswind, coupled with the significant housing shortage in Sedgwick County and surrounding areas, offering an incentive to attract people to Park City seems unnecessary at this time. In Sedgwick County, there are only 590 houses on the market, and 284 more homes have sold this year as compared to last year at this time. In Park City, there are 41 houses currently on the market. 31 of them are already under contract. Of those 41 houses, only 4 are new construction, and 3 of them are pending, with the last one being listed as the model home and is not for sale. In the first 4 months, the city has paid 11 new home buyers incentives, with an additional 5 applications approved, waiting for completion and closing. This is for a total cost of $40,000. Last year, Park City paid out a total of $67,500, most of those coming in the last month of the year. The 2021 budget amount for homeowner incentives is $125,000. Staff recommends suspending the home buyers incentive program for the remainder of 2021.
So this was something I kind of brought back up that, several weeks ago that I would like to see us look at, is I think with the market changing and with where we are when I'm signing the checks for the incentives, I'm like, I think times have changed and we don't really need to be doing those. I'm like, why are we doing incentives when houses are going like hotcakes? There's an extreme shortage. And we could put more of those funds towards the exterior grant program instead of the new housing program, and try to see if we can't invest in some of the sprucing up some of the community houses that we have in the older areas. We're going to see here in the next probably in the next 2 months, we're going to see some developments where they want to start taking off and putting in infrastructure and start adding in housing. And with the market the way it is, and we've put ourselves in a position where we're more desirable, I don't think we really need to do this right now, and I think it'd be a good idea in this climate that we pull away from it and see what happens. If we need to, we can always bring it back out, dust it off, and throw it back in place, but I think it'd be a good idea for us to walk away from it for a while and see how we do. So, John, I'm not sure if you were lit up last time, and
I pressed it. Okay. I pressed it. I agree with you. I think we're probably actually, and I commend you for bringing this forward, because I really think we probably could have done this in December. The market's been hot for quite a long time, and the housing prices have gone up. So I would make a motion to suspend the new home buyers incentive program for the remainder of 2021.
Okay, Tom?
I'll second it for discussion.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear a date on suspension. Are we going to give 60, 90 days for the ones that have been in process to be applied for?
Oh.
No, I think
there's stuff out there that's been advertised, potentially, that homeowners association. We're the first one in the county that I'm aware of to get rid of it.
I think the ones that have submitted applications that are in process, we honor those, but no new ones going forward from today.
I would agree. I would agree. I mean, I think that's a
I will be opposed to this if we don't put like 30 days on it or something, give them an opportunity to clean out the paperwork. And if they haven't done it by then so be it. But I don't think we can come in here tonight, because somebody may have talked about this today with a builder or a real estate agent and is planning on using it, and we're going to tell them tomorrow it's not available.
Yep.
So if if we do it as of tonight, it's done, I'll be voting against it. Okay?
Ben?
Just as, do we need to clarify that as part of the motion then, as far as when this would end and then who's exempted as far as existing paperwork?
I think the motion is to terminate it as of today. So people that have an application that's valid in as of close of business today will be honored.
Okay. My thought is there's people that could have applications that are being processed that have not been turned in yet, and we're gonna cut them out of it. So, okay.
I mean, truthfully, this was on the agenda. There's no builders here. They're like, I got people pending. I've got a sale that's dependent on it. I mean, we don't. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I feel like we created a competitive edge. And again, we may be the first ones to suspend it, but if I remember right, we were one of the first to even do it. I think we were the first to start this incentive program, and then Mays did it after us, and then it kind of spread it. But it's kind of like IRBs, you know. First one to do it, and the second one gets better, and the third one's better, but it did work. It did its job, and I think we just, you know, we've got a few months of this thing, a couple months or a month and a half that it'll sit and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, and you can go back and forth on this maybe a little bit on, you know, the city wrote a check that was tangible when we gave money back to, on our part for incentives, and then what we ask on the other side from the builder was through what was paid back through maybe an upgrade or something that maybe wasn't as tangible as what we saw on our end. I don't know.
My intent is not to say we shouldn't do this. I just think we should at least give 30 days grace period for those that may be in process to get sent in. I mean, we're just telling somebody that could be looking at something today and planning on buying one under this program that tomorrow it's not available.
Yeah, but
there's no.
We're the donors here.
Pardon?
We're the donors. We're the gifters of this thing. If we decide to shut it off, we shut it off. I mean, it's not like we're cheating someone. We're just not doing it anymore. Okay. And to me, 30 days, that's the end of the budget year. I mean, that's 2021 budget.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right.
I kind of see where Tom's coming from. I mean, we need to give a grace period to where these people the builders are telling these people that they cannot do that. I think that's kind of what he's implying there. I kind of see that. I don't know if you want to cut it off, or you like give a 30-day grace period and call Tim Hendricks and tell him, say, hey, don't be offering this no more. I mean, I don't know.
Now you just think about how many building permits are pulled. I mean,
yeah.
And then you also have to think about the other direction and what you do when you do that. How many people come pull permits just so they can get in there and say that they had something?
Yeah.
You also shoot your foot the other direction. It was free money.
Yeah, I agree.
All good things come to an end sometime.
Yeah.
So, and the whole point of this is we've positioned ourselves to where we don't need to do this right now.
Oh, I agree there, but I mean, to give a grace period there, I think it'd be.
I think what you have to look at is, would you rather have more money to give towards an exterior grant program for existing homes, or would you rather incentivize new homes?
See, I have trouble supporting that, so.
Okay. Ben, did you have some more?
Yeah, I agree there, Ray, with, I mean, if you've ever been in customer service, everyone always talks about how the new employee or the new customers get everything and the existing customers get nothing and get passed on time and time again. And though this isn't a customer situation, we're citizens and taxpayers, I think it would be beneficial to sit there and say, you know what, let's move this money from focusing on new builds, which are in high demand, to helping those who aren't, who could use that extra little bit to help revitalize their home. make some of those improvements that they've been wanting to. And it seems like just a much better investment there for our community, because again, the housing market is booming. When it stops, well, then we can figure out what to do at that point, but I don't think we're losing anything. I want to say it was about 2 years ago, I believe we restructured the Home Buyers Incentive Program, if I remember right, 2 or 3 years ago. And it was the same situation that we had to come down to, and we discussed was whether to terminate it that night or to give it a few extra days there to let it wear off. And the consensus was then is that we just change it at that point. Because we could, again, as you mentioned, have a rush of people tomorrow coming in. If we say we're going to do it till the end of the month, come in tomorrow trying to pull paperwork and get it all down and tying us up on this money for however length of time while they either do or don't follow through with their commitment to build. So I think I don't have a problem with terminating it this evening.
George?
Well, new home buyers got a pretty good incentive right now, if you look at the interest rates. I don't know if I was ever for this or not. You know, I bought a home. I think I paid 9%, 8 or 9% interest, and you know, nobody helped me, and most of us here, nobody did help us, and you know, it's. I think the incentives are in interest rates for people to buy this, and I strongly believe in helping the people that are longtime residents, the home improvement programs. I think that's more important. They're the people that supported us all these years.
And then if you've kind of been looking at just on the federal level, what you keep hearing about is, it sounds like there's going to be a bunch of first-time home buyer stuff out there that,
Yeah.
So it sounds like there'll be some other stuff out there for folks too.
Well, can we negotiate a week or so, or what?
Let's go to Jim.
Okay, sorry, Jim.
No, I'll support it, whether it's stopping it tonight or in the very near future, but I don't see any obligation for us to go past tonight, and, it was something that was available and it won't be anymore. I was just gonna say that I like the idea of it going back into some of the maintenance of the existing homes. It'd be good in the next meeting maybe to have a recap of where we are on the budget of the money we had allocated for existing homes, improvements, and how much is left. And then let's stop this and see, which would trigger us to take a look at it in a year. It'd be good to have a report of, how our home starts were affected versus home starts in other markets a year from now. So I'm supportive. That's all I have.
Okay. John?
I just feel like, being responsible with taxpayer money, that we did this to get the program going to sell houses. And I understand if someone's going to do one, if they're going to build a house and it's contingent on getting this money. If they don't buy it, the way the market is right now, someone else is going to buy it. And to me, like where the incentive money we're doing for upgrades on houses, they're probably not going to do that unless we do that, unless we inject that money in that program. And doing that also will increase our valuations and increase our tax base. So, and as Ben mentioned, that's the people that live there are most likely the people who have been paying the taxes, where the new person that's maybe possibly moving from another town hasn't. So I think it's time we just shut it off for a little while. And I think I spoke in air a while ago because I was thinking of the state's budget that I do at work ends June 30. So you'd have through the rest of the calendar year, but I'm supportive.
Yeah, and I think when we were talking about the birth of this, when we went, we purchased those developments that went under, and we became landowners, and then we came up with incentives to try to get rid of those lots. And then Then we came back and started doing something for other builders because they felt like they were competing against us and our lots. We don't have lots anymore, and that's really why this kind of exists right now, is because we did this because builders felt like they were in competition with the lots that we owned. We don't own lots anymore. So it's just another reason to try to get rid of it and the climate that we're currently in. Tom?
Well, I just wanted to make one comment, and that is I'm not opposed to doing away with it. I'm opposed to just slamming the door on it one night without the public knowing it if they didn't read the agenda. And then I wanted to clarify that the money that we've contributed to this is from permit fees for sewer and water, not from the tax base. So it affects the tax base, but it's actually permit fees, not tax dollars that have paid for this. But again, the only reason I oppose it is just that we're just cutting it off with no 15-day warning or anything like that, so.
May I respond to that? Are you talking the permit fees pay for the home buyers, or you're talking about the permit fees pays for the incentives to make upgrades?
What am I, you need permit fees?
Yeah, the permit
Or
fees
when
pays for
you-
people for the Paint on the House program or the upgrades?
I'm talking about that for new homes. It's the permit fees that they pay to hook onto sewer and water is being rebated, is where that rebate's coming from. So it's a new fee that we're charging them for a water meter and a sewer hookup that they're getting rebated back.
But that money comes into the budget. That money comes into the budget.
Yeah, but
Which is
it's
our
not
annual operating
officially a
expenses.
tax dollar, it's another subset of the city funds.
Yeah, it's part of the budget.
It is, and then it.
Yeah.
It's taxpayer dollars.
And is what I was
As-
meaning.
as-
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It's how we fund our city operations, and it's taxpayer
Yeah.
revenue.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And that motion passes 6-0. That brings us to governing body reports.
6-1.
Oh, sorry, 6-1. Sorry about that, Tom. Got eliminated from the ayes and the nays. And we'll move with Jim. Jim, do you have any comments this evening?
No, I have no comments tonight.
George?
I don't have anything.
Tom?
I've got a couple I wanted to talk about. One of them is 53rd Street and the woods we got growing in the ditch down there at 51st, or 53rd and Primrose. Melvin and I both have discussed that. Traffic light situation on 53rd Street at 135 and at the crossover there where the new quick shop's going. Both of them are almost impossible at different times of the day to make a left turn out off the private properties and the public streets there. At night, 135 is a nightmare. People are going down and whipping U-turns and coming back down 53rd Street to go west. And let's see, signage. We've got signs over in shopping center across the street for organizations and businesses that haven't been there for probably 3, 4, 5 years. And I just wondered if we're going to enforce our side ordinance and make them replace those. We've got around town, we've had that in the past where signs have just been left up and the businesses have left and they deteriorate and we don't ever do anything about it. So I'd just like to call that to the attention of council and staff.
Okay. No?
I don't have anything.
Ben?
Sure, do you want to announce, the BMX, Park City BMX group will be hosting an event on June 4th. That's a Friday night, and I believe it's with T-Mobile, in conjunction with T-Mobile. We'll be out there, and if I understood it correctly, and Zach, you might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understood it is that T-Mobile will be covering the cost for riders, their riders fee that night, and so that'll be exciting. So if you're interested in learning to ride or just want to go out, maybe we can get Counsel out there and ride that night. It should be a good night there. It's June 4th at the Park City BMX Park, and then also the 18th to the 20th, they'll have their state qualifiers there as well here in town. So they got a lot of great things going on over there at the Park City BMX group. And then, oh, the other question I had, and I apologize, this was covered at the last meeting. I know we approved the 61st Street traffic signal repair. Do we have a ETA as far as when that might be?
There's an email.
Didn't we send that email out?
He told us.
We did.
The last meeting.
I missed the meeting, so I
Yeah,
missed
but
it.
there's an email that come out.
So the ETA on that, wow, that's really loud. The ETA on that signal light repair is gonna be about 6 weeks before the new cameras come in, the equipment comes in, then we'll have the electrician install the new camera systems, and Gade will come out and program everything, and we'll be good to go. So 6 weeks to 2 months.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
George?
Yeah, kudos to New Anthem Church and the volunteers that came out for our Park City Serve Day. I was encouraged by the number of volunteers that we had, and also the folks that received the help. They were really just thankful for the fact that there was somebody there to help them, to serve them, whatever needs they had. We have a lot of elderly people that needed help cleaning gutters out or doing some things they couldn't do on their own. So I appreciate the fact we had many volunteers there. A lot of them had skills in that area already, so they were able to help out in that area. Also, our Park City Fishing Derby, we're finalizing that event on June 19th from 9 to 11 at Chisholm Point Pond on North Grove. We'd like for everybody to come out to that. The event is free, and we're looking forward to having a good time. Since we didn't have it last year, we're really encouraged and excited about having it this year. Thank you.
John?
I was second what Tom was saying about the 53rd Street intersection, that it does seem like it's starting to get very congested with, and I would imagine that with that area developing even more, and then Pratt Industries going in, when their shifts go on, that it's going to be very heavily traveled. So I'd say whatever process we need to go through to maybe get KDOT to take a look at that and see about getting a traffic controlled intersection there. And that's all I have.
Ben?
Yeah, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Jim?
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes 7-0. Thank you.